Very much, Christian, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm going to present an idea, but before that, I would like to quote one of the sentences that Warren Buffett said: "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." I choose this quote just because the company that I'm going to present is probably related with that. But before jumping more in deep into the company, let me explain how we group and character choose a company. So a company for us needs to have three characteristics. One of them is the competitive advantage. Probably most of you have read some of the book of Pat Dorsey with the competitive advantage. For us, a company has three competitive advantages. The first one is the price. Has a competitive advantage in price, can charge a higher price than the competition. Quantity, they can sell more than the competition. Or in costs, they produce lower than the competition. Based on that, we have a couple of examples here, but all of our companies must to sit in some of those boxes. Otherwise, it's per time. The second characteristic is regarding the tendency. Well, to look into company as a long term, you need to look, well, what are the aspects that the revenues or the clients comes from. The tendency can be a social demographic, a financial, sustainability, technologically, and as well, all of those companies have to sit in some of these boxes. And the third characteristic that a company has to have is in some of the groups. And I would like to raise a question. How would you group the companies? How many groups do you think are in the world? How many kind of companies are in the world? Probably now 10 kind of companies, 100 kind of companies. For us, there are only 5 kind of companies. Only 5, as easy as it. So based on that, for us it's fairly easy to realize where the money comes from, how the evolution of the business is going to. The first one is the Trap stock, what we call, it's called the Trap stock. A stock that the revenues does not grow. However, the cost growth at inflation rate. So what does it mean? That if you buy an enterprise value, if it's 10 times, the enterprise value go higher, 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 or the stocks go lower, lower, lower. The other is the boring stocks. The stocks that nothing growth. Neither sales or costs. So it's boring. It's always traded at the same price, at the same multiple. The other kind of stocks is the growth stocks. Oh, I have a growth company. They have the capacity to increase sales with the inflation rate. However, the costs also can increase through the inflation rates. They have an advantage. The only advantage is that profits grows through the inflation rates. So at the end of the day, the multiples also improves. However, for us, the best kind of companies that we can group are the businesses that we call the businesses. The good businesses is a business that you can grow revenues through inflation, but they have operating leverage. That's fantastic. If you can grow revenues and you have operating leverage, then the multiples go down very quick. However, there's a better kind of business. Which one? The one that has increase in revenues, plus operating leverage, plus capacity to renegotiate with your suppliers to not increase in prices. You have price power. So this is the best kind of companies, the best kind of business. And then you can realize that at 10 times EBITDA at the initial period ends to very different in 5 years' time. So I will try to explain right now what we consider a good business or can be considered an excellent one. The company is Stallergenes Greer. It's a biopharmaceutical company specializing in treatments for respiratory allergies. Market cap 600 plus million euros with net cash positioned. One of the two world's market leaders in allergy immunotherapy therapies. Present in more than 40 countries with some kind of achievements. In 2009 was an inflection point for this company. Accelerated its global expansion through oral air. This is for grass allergies. In 2015 was the first ever immunotherapy tablet authorized by FDA in the United States. And as we can see in the charts below, they start to sell in the United States. So the most history is in the last 2 or 3 years. But before going to the numbers and going to the company, let me explain how the allergy treatment space works. I don't know if some of you are allergic, but you can go to the doctor and say, hey, I'm allergic, I have asthma, for instance, and they said, okay, no problem. You can be treated symptomatically, reducing the symptoms. You can reduce your symptoms through antihistamines or corticosteroids, or you can go and be treated through allergen immunotherapy treatment. This treatment re-educates your immunology system. So at the end of the day, solves your problem. You will not be allergic anymore after this treatment. And you can choose, if you decide to not be allergic anymore, you can say, okay, no problem, I'm going to go into this kind of therapy. You can choose between 2, subcutaneous or sublingual. I don't know which one will you choose. For me, it's clear. I'm going to choose the sublingual. And in this kind of products, Stallergenes and ALK, they have the 50% of the market share, are world leaders in this kind of AIT. Talking about the amount, the total sale in the allergy therapy space is roughly speaking 9 billion. 90% is coming from the symptomatic, and only 11% through the allergy immunotherapy therapies, of which is total roughly speaking 1 billion. The most is based in or is in Europe. And if you can look here, the 15% is in the United States, even though the 50% of the allergy people is American. So the potential in the United States is huge. Going to the Stallergenes area, how business works. How business works. This is for the grass allergy. They also have for mite allergy, which is fairly different, but how does it work? Prescription. You can be prescribed from September till December. You can go to doctor and say, okay, you will be able to have the treatment. I'm going to prescribe you all this kind of products, oral air, for instance. When a patient starts the treatment in January, 3 months before the spring season, where the grass allergy starts and ends at the end of the season, okay, no problem. How long does it take? It's not 1 year. It takes 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years. So once you get a patient or once you start a treatment, this person is still with you for 4 years until the end of the treatment. So how does it work, these sales? If you can let me show as a water tank, where the new patients fill in the water, and when you end the treatment, the sales decrease, and you fill the water through the new patients. Then, with the first year of the treatments. Okay, you have the first years. The second years, you will have new patients. They will grow your sales, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, you have an average of 4 years as a sales. Moreover, taking into account that this tank will grow, that because more people will switch from subcutaneous to sublingual, plus the penetration in this kind of therapies is growing. So at the end of the day, this tank will grow year on year. All of this has been result with the following sales. From 2008, remember that in 2009 was a flexible point, and oral air was granted with the authorization in most European countries. The sales increase a wealth rhythm. Moreover, the EBIT margin growth as well. Look, from this 15% EBIT margin up to 30%. So the operational leverage growth, the sales growth. Moreover, the most interesting thing here is that new clients growth year on year, year on year, year on year. So at the end of the day, in 2014, the new clients, the sales coming from the new clients were 80 million in sales. So every year, 80 million came in to the sales. It's so far so good, at least. It's like a Disney movie. Oh, it's very easy. However, 2015, the perfect storm. What happened there? The worst ever merger with Greer in May. So no data. We had no data from 2015. Remember that 2015 was the first year that oral air was launched in the United States. So with no information in the United States. Plus, in August, September, it started problems because of the IT systems in the main plant in Europe, in Anthony. So in September, it started the IT problems. In December, the French authority came into the plant and said, hey man, you will not be able to issue any product from your plant. So at the start of the season, they will not be able to sell any kind of product. What happened there? That the sales decreased. The suspension was temporarily. At the end of the day, the French authority said, okay, there were no problem with your product, so it's not problem with the health of the people. It was just an IT operating problem with the SIP. It was just a problem. So you are now able to relaunch your product. But what is the problem? That it was in March, with the season already started. What happened with the people? Left the treatment. Left the treatment. So 1 year without treatment. However, in June, the new patient enrollment was 70% of the 2015. So the turnaround in June was there, and the company started a restart program just to try to restart the new products. In other words, you have the sales. It's like flush the toilet. All your clients, because remember that it was 4 years of treatment, all your clients left. All. The sales goes to zero. What's need to you right now? Restart again. Restart again. 1 year over 1 year over 1 year. What is, let's say, the good thing here? That the new clients in 2014 were 80 million in sales year on year, year on year, year on year. So what they needed to do? Restart again the company, start refill this tank, which at the end of the day are the sales. But in 2016, we've seen some kind of good things. The first one was the French Health Authority, authorized to reopen the operations within 3 months. 70% of references are available. The new patients enrollment was 70% of 2015, so only lost, let's say, 30% of the patients in France, one of the largest countries, and increased market share from 15% at the end of 2015 up to 25% within a month. So, summarizing, a summary, the product was not a problem at all with the product. The product is healthy. An example of that is FDA. FDA is still permitting. So they had no problems with FDA, only with the French authority that they said, okay, you had a problem with your IT system, and right now there's no problem with your product. In the United States, they start from 1 million in 2014 as sales, up to 50 million in 2015, and up to 88 million in 2016. So in 2 years, the sales in the United States grow from 1 million up to 88 million. And they are only 2 years enrollment. What is going to happen? These clients, these 88 million, they're still there for 2 more years, and the sales in the United States are going to increase. Permits, it's still there, no problem with permits. However, its competitors, ALK, had a problems with FDA. They said, ALK, you will not be able to sell the products in the United States. And about competitive advantage, well, the size is not as big for the big pharmas. It's as quite small to have, you know, a fairly comfortable stake with ALK and Stallergenes. Access to raw materials. So remember that if you have allergy to pollen or to grass, you need this kind of grass, or you need this kind of house-diced mite to get an allergen that will help you to reduce your allergy. So the access to raw material is a key. Greer is the largest player in raw material, so they have no problem with that. The competition buys them the raw materials, so they have a very good view how the competition is doing, how it's working, so on and so forth. Market. Well, for us, we think that there is still a room to growth. Only 25% of the world population is suffering from allergic rhinitis, but the penetration is only 10% in Europe and 18% in the United States. So there's room to growth the market share. Turnaround, we think that they are more or less there. We will see in 2015 the end of this tunnel, but they have right now 50 million in cash plus 50 million in revolving facility, plus, remember that the pharma are fairly good, a large pipeline in phase 2 and 3 for other allergies. So they have a good product, they have a good pipeline, and right now, what we have to do? Well, wait, this turnaround is going to take time. Jump into the valuation, how we value the company. We do not make a long kind of exercise. We can see here the sales from 2017 up to 15, the EBIT margin, and the net profit margin. Look, growing year on year in 2 digits. This is only Nestlé, Unilever, Inditex has this kind of net profit over sales margin. What happened in 2015? The perfect storm. 2016, turnaround. I think that we will stay here in 2017. However, they expect that the sales for 2017 will be in the range between 240 and 280 with EBITDA positive. And well, what do we assume? That they will take the same stake than 2013 sales in Europe, growing in the United States, without taking into account the value of the pipeline, and it gives us a potential of 50% applying a multiplier of 15 PE, taking into account that ALK is a 20 plus, 30 plus PE multiple. And I would like to end my presentation with another quote from Warren Buffett. You can produce a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. So it's more or less applied to the company that we presented. But before going to the questions, I would like to recommend a book, a film, and people. Last year I did the same, but for this year I highly recommended Capital Returns. For me, it was an excellent book regarding the capital cycle. The Big Short, most of you probably read or looked the film. Not for the film in itself, but for Mr. Barry, but for us, inspired because the deep knowledge on each investment is huge. Is what we want to do, have a better knowledge. And people, last year I presented Amancio Ortega as well as Ferran Adrià, the cooker. This year, for us, and for me particularly, is a very good inspiration. The Hoyt family is a father and a son, and you can see how the problem of the son has. And those guys did an Ironman. Ironman, if some of you that's not familiarized with that, is 3,500 meters swimming, 180 kilometers cycling, and after that, a marathon. All in the same day. They spent for that 16 hours. Those guys made the marathon in Atlanta with 3 hours, 15 minutes. I ran, I made some triathlons, for instance, I do not make for sure Ironmans, and believe me, it's terrible. And achieve a 3 hours, 15 in a marathon is incredible. Just, jump in your sun. What teaches us that if you want to race, you have to train. And it's exactly the same for investments. You have to learn, you have to do your homework before your market gives you the opportunity. So, based on that, I will jump into the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Xavi. It was a brilliant presentation, and I learned a lot. I would like to know if you have, or you can provide us with some insights of a new competition coming into this particular field of immunotherapy for allergic patients.
Well, it was before 2015. It was oligopolistic. 2015 was monopolistic, so only ALK had the 90% of the market share in Europe. Because if you have a patient and you cannot give them the Stallergenes pill, you will go to the competition. And it will stay there for 4 years. So this is the main competition. The third players, there are third players, mainly in subcutaneous, which is an injection, but not in sublingual. There's competition, but the stake is 10%, 8%. Remember that you need the permits. Remember that you need to have the sales force. For instance, ALK had an agreement with Merck in the United States because they hadn't sales force. Merck, before sell the product, said, no, I'm going to change my mind. I will not sell your product. So what happened in 2016? ALK had the permits in the United States, but without sales force. So the only product that in sublingual way that can be sold in the United States is right now is rare. That's why this incredible jump in sales. So I do not see a third player in the space, at least for the next 2 or 3 years.
Hi, Xavi. Great presentation. Just a couple of questions about why do people still use the traditional antihistaminic instead of having this 4-year treatment in which you can cure everything? And the position in Japan, which is the biggest antihistaminic market in the world because of things related with the way they are. Well, if they have some studies there, or what are they doing there? Thank you.
Sure, welcome. Well, we have to take into account that the allergy can be treated through symptomatical treatment and the allergic immunotherapy treatments. Not all the allergies has the same intensity. So if you are an allergy that all the day you are leaking or all the day you have asthma and you have to talk, I don't know, in public work, is a good target to go to the immunotherapy treatment. So not all the allergies need to go to the treatment, to the immunotherapy treatment. So this is more or less the answer regarding that. There is still a lot of people try to reduce the symptoms instead of the treatment or re-educate your immunotherapy body. Regarding the Japan, they had an agreement, and they have an agreement with one of the largest, Shionogoi, one of the largest pharma companies in Japan, and they had this year the permits for the house dust mite to start selling in Japan. They have 2 or 3 more products in phase 2 and phase 3 in Japan. So I think that it's an unlocked value in Japan, because this 2016 was the first year that they start increasing the sales in Japan.
Thank you for the presentation. I will ask you, you do not face the same problem as Novo in the United States, like there is a price pressure with this, like, well, the pharmacy, is there any issue there with you guys, or you don't have that problem? You are not facing that problem?
Well,
Thank you.
It's a good question. Well, actually, I do not have deep knowledge on our other problems, but more or less the treatment is roughly, let's say, the price of the treatment is quite different. How much can cost a treatment in the allergy per year? Let's say between 500 up to 1,000 plus euros per year, or dollars per year. Can you have a price pressure there? For sure. But as any kind of pharma product, we do not see in Europe these kind of problems. Looking to the price and looking to the quantity, price is still at the same level, even increased through the inflation, but the quantity increased in Europe. And the United States, we only have 2 years. So far, the price has not been decreased. Remember that they have the monopoly right now in the States.
And thank you for the presentation. And what's the comparison with the pricing of the intravenous treatment? Like, are they, because I guess that's the most obvious competitor for market share.
Sure. Well, the price is more or less, would you say, it's not the same because it's more cheaper the subcutaneous. But what's the problem with the subcutaneous? So first, it's cheaper. The subcutaneous is cheaper than the sublingual because at the end of the day, you have to take one pill yearly, every day. But the subcutaneous is that you need to go to doctor once per month, get an injection and buy. What's happening with the hospital? These 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the patients that goes to the hospital to get a subcutaneous treatment is cost of the hospital that pays to the doctor. So right now that most of the hospitals are looking to reduce the costs, for them it's easier to give you the pill. So it's true that it's cheaper, but not for the hospital that at the end of the day is the one that is prescribing you which kind of product is better. And take into account one thing, if you go to subcutaneous, you get all for 1 month. If you go to sublingual, you have the same product every day, the same quantity every day. So it's more quite effective, the sublingual for instead of the subcutaneous. But it's true, but it's cheaper. Thank you.